What's up, Jets fans? Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be ranking draft scenarios based on how likely they are. So I am recording this on Friday morning. So we have about six and a half days until the 2025 NFL draft commences. So there have been quite a few rumors going around the last few weeks, depending on, who the Jets have been enamored with and who they've done second interviews with or visits with and all that kind of stuff. So I figured I would take all the rumors and just kind of put them into a video. Instead of doing a mock draft today, I will save that, my final mock draft, for probably Monday, right after Easter. So let's get into these draft scenarios here. First, we have the most likely, the most boring, I guess you would say. So that would be Tyler Warren and Armand Membu. So if you asked me what I would ideally want, it would probably be Armand Membu over Tyler Warren. I'd probably be equally excited for both, but I'd rather solidify the offensive line, especially with the offense that the Jets look like they want to run with Justin Fields, with the three-headed monster at running back, with not really addressing the wide receiver in free agency or through trade so far. It looks like we're going to be a run-first team. Now, you could argue that Tyler Warren kind of sort of kills two birds with one stone. He's an extension of the offensive line, and he's also a great receiving tight end. So you get an extra weapon for Justin Fields and beyond if Fields doesn't work out. And you get a good blocking tight end. Not the greatest, but definitely good. One of the stronger parts of his game. But I just think the prospect of solidifying the offensive line for 5+ years, maybe, if they re-sign. Don't forget the guards are coming up on free agency as well. AVT needs a new deal. So let's just say they take Armand Membu. You got Olu Fashanu, you have John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, AVT, and Armand Membu. That's probably already a top 10 offensive line when everyone's fully healthy, and an extremely athletic offensive line, albeit that. And Tyler Warren, I feel like the Jets haven't had a good tight end for an extended period of time since probably Dustin Keller. But I do feel like in a loaded tight end class, I feel like passing on Tyler Warren to like maybe a round 2 or round 3 tight end, someone like Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo, someone like that would probably be better. You solidify the offensive line now, and you can really push your narrative and push your offense. But regardless of how you guys feel, these are probably the two most likely scenarios come draft day, being Armand Membu or Tyler Warren being that pick at number 7 overall. And then we have my second category that it wouldn't be shocked. So it's well documented that the Jets have quite a bit of interest in Mason Graham. He was my top pick at number 7 for quite a long time. And you look and see have gone about free agency, signing about 3 or 4 gap defensive tackles. Makes me think that they are looking at someone on day 2 or potentially early day 3 to be their problem-solving defensive tackle next to Quinnen Williams. It seems like those guys, the signings that they made, Byron Coart, Jay Tufele, I'm blanking on the other one right now, but those guys are more stopgap. Oh, sorry, Derek Nottie. Those are stopgap signings. Those aren't guys that are, you hope those aren't guys that are going to be starting next to Quinnen Williams. So makes me think that they are looking to draft someone on day 2 or day 3 to be that run stuffing defensive end. And also Mason Graham doesn't necessarily fit into the defense. He's more of a pass rushing 3 tech, and we have one of those already in Quinnen Williams. So, he's a good run stopper, but he also had Kenneth Grant next to him at Michigan. That's a 340-pound run stuffing defensive tackle. So, I don't know if having Quinnen Williams and Mason Graham next to each other really is the solution, but I also wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be necessarily mad if Mason Graham is the pick at number 7. Also, Tet McMillan on my right-hand side here. They haven't addressed wide receiver really at all, besides for, signing Tyler Johnson and Josh Reynolds. Those are not signings that necessarily move the needle. And I love Jets internet culture to death, because they will take, and you got to love it, you got to admire it, they will take any minuscule signing and turn it into I think this could be a sleeper signing for the New York Jets. And, I really, really love this signing. I think that he's going to blossom in New York. You see that with every single signing, and I love it. I love the blind positivity. I am part of that to a degree, but Tet McMillan he's not necessarily my number 1 wide receiver overall. I love the size. I love the route running ability. I love the catch radius. I think Matthew Golden and Emeka Ibuka, you could even argue Luther Burden or maybe wide receiver one over him. But Ted McMillan is giving the Jets something that they don't have, and that is a legitimate X wide receiver on the opposite side of Garrett Wilson. You could argue Alan Lazard is that guy, but even though he took a pay cut, I don't want that guy seeing significant snaps at all on the field. But I wouldn't be surprised if the card is run up at number 7 if Ted McMillan is still on the board, and it winds up being the wide receiver playmaker. Rumored interest. So we have Will Campbell here on the left side, and we have Shamar Stewart on the other side. So I'll be quite honest with you. I would be devastated if the Jets drafted Shamar Stewart at number 7 overall. The only way I would find it relatively acceptable, and I'd probably still be mad about it, would be if they were to trade down into the teens or maybe even the early 20s and he was still there and they took him. Then I could see the vision. The defensive end position behind Will Johnson and a returning Jermaine Johnson. Sorry, I said Will Johnson. Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson is a question mark. Jermaine Johnson himself coming back is a question mark. You know, an Achilles tear is not an easy injury to come back from. So Stewart is someone that legitimately has an argument as the greatest combine athlete of all time. He put in a solid 10 RAS score from the combine. He's an unbelievable athlete. There's no denying that. And his lack of sacks at Texas A&M doesn't really tell the whole story. Him and Nick Scorton combined for the most pressures in the SEC combined. So, you know, he's disrupting the passer. He's a good run defender as well. So that's something that Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson's a good run defender, but Will McDonald is a liability when it comes to setting the edge. So I wouldn't necessarily hate it. I would dislike it. I would hate it if it was at number 7. I would understand it and entertain it if it was in a trade down scenario. And then you have Will Campbell that a lot of people want to take if he's still on the board over Amron Membu. Here's the thing with me with Will Campbell is a lot of people say, oh, short arms. That doesn't necessarily matter. If you guys remember Rashawn Slater had short arms, and he's one of the best left tackles in football for the Los Angeles Chargers. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot. It's not the end all be all. Will Campbell is a left tackle or a left guard at the NFL level. I'm not a big fan of moving guys over from one side of the line to the other. It's a different skill set. And I know a lot of people are going to be, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. Guys make that transition all the time. Yes, very true. But also, a lot of guys try to make that transition and fail miserably. I'm a big fan of drafting guys and playing them in their natural position. To me, Will Campbell is a natural left side offensive lineman. So I'd have a tad of an issue with that, unless they're thinking about moving Olufashinu over to the right side, where he was pretty horrible his rookie year in the 3 games he played over there. He was bad on the right side, and that's case in point. Olufashinu was bad on the right side. They moved him back over to his natural position when Tyron Smith got hurt, and he played great. So why would we go down the same road a year later and draft Will Campbell and have him play on the right side? So, you know, that would be my gripe with that, but they are interested. Apparently, a rumor came out earlier this week saying that the top 3 draft interests for the Jets are Armand Membu, Will Campbell, and Tyler Warren. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still on the board if he was the pick. I wouldn't necessarily hate it. I would just be curious to see where they played him. Maybe long-term John Simpson doesn't return and he plays left guard. I don't know if I'd be willing to spend the number 7 overall pick on a player that's probably going to play guard for me, but we'll see what happens. Moving on to the unlikely trade down scenario. So I don't hate this at all. I'm a big trade down guy. If you guys see any of my mock drafts, I always almost try to trade down in the first round. Kenneth Grant is a mid-first round target that I would absolutely love. I spoke upon him a little bit when we were talking about Mason Graham. Kenneth Grant is that run-stuffing 340-pound athletic defensive tackle that I think would sit quite perfectly next to Quinnen Williams and solve a lot of our run defense issues. Then you have Jackson Dart, who the Jets have been reportedly enamored with for quite some time. I would be furious if the Jets moved down in the draft and then settled on Jackson Dart. Regardless of how many day 2 and day 3 picks they picked up, I would be very, very disappointed in this regime if that was their first pick, Jackson Dart. I think Jackson Dart is great. I don't think he's a first-round talent. I don't even think he's really a second-round talent, to be quite honest with you. I think he's a developmental day 3 quarterback. Same thing with Jalen Milroe. We could throw him on this graphic too. Jalen Milroe is a player that if the Jets moved down in the first round and took, I think I would just turn my TV off and leave it off for the rest of the draft weekend. But if they took him, late, if they traded down and got a late day 2 pick or early day 3 pick, I wouldn't be mad at that. Just not in the first round. And then Colston Loveland on the right side here, another Michigan player. It seems like I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, but I promise you I'm not. He would be a great middle to late first round pick for the New York Jets. If you want to address, pardon me, if you want to address the tight end position later on in the first round, if they trade down Colson Loveland. Apparently, a lot of scouts say that Colson Loveland is a close second to Tyler Warren. I think Warren is a little bit more than close to Colson Loveland, but either way, he's a great player, knows how to find the zone. Really great up the seam. I'm sorry, guys. I'm struggling today. My allergies are killing me. So if I sound scratchy and I keep clearing my throat, I really do apologize. But my allergies are killing me today, early on this Friday morning. But Colson Loveland would be a great option in a trade down the board. And then you have the downright insane. So on my right, I have Breece Hall, and it is that we traded Breece Hall. And then if Ashton Jeanty is on the board at number 7, we would be taking Ashton Jeanty. Now, from a pure player standpoint, I don't think you can get much better in the draft than Ashton Jeanty. I mean, I tweeted out my top 5 players in the draft, regardless of position, in no particular order earlier this week, and it was Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Jahad Campbell, and Jahdae Barron. Those are my top 5 players in the class. I think he is generational. I know that word gets thrown around quite a bit, and because of the internet draft culture, the word generational doesn't mean as much as it used to. I mean, we threw around generational with Brock Bowers last year, and it has worked out up until this point. He has to double down and he has to keep performing. But yeah, he looks pretty generational. But that is a tag that a lot of prospects get thrown on them, and few can come through. And I think Ashton Jeanty is one of those players that can absolutely step in and just be that every down generational player that people think he is going to be. I mean, everything good about a running back he possesses, and really none of the bad. He is a phenomenal player, but I just don't see this rumor happening. This is something that came out a couple weeks ago that I thought would be fun to entertain. I don't know how excited I'd be about using the number 7 overall pick on a running back and then trading Breece Hall. Yeah, I know that Breece Hall is probably not going to be re-signed for the long term. If you have to re-sign Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall is definitely the odd man out there, especially after having Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen's rookie seasons being as fruitful as they were. Yeah, I think Breece Hall would definitely be the odd man out, and I would not be mad if he was traded before the season started. But it depends on how this goes down. If this were to happen, I would rather them trade Breece Hall first, because that's how you maximize your value that you're getting back from him. If you draft Ashton Jeanty first, and then you're like, yes, we'd like to trade Breece Hall, well, everyone knows that you're going to look to trade Breece Hall, so you're not going to get as much for him. So I would love to trade him before the draft, if that is possible, and then take Ashton Jeanty, if this rumor was true. This is downright insane, but this is fun to enter. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There are my 5, I guess, ranking my 5 areas that I've heard rumors. So let me hit the comment section. Please subscribe if you haven't. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.